Yeah, let's get the latest. talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, joins us. All right, Crookie.
Crookie monster. Oh, look at the hat. Look at the hat.
All right, boys, just for you two. Producer Ryan insisted I had to get the,
look,
the text out.
You're going to have to wear that all season, mate, because we got used to you now in America with the hats on. So you're just going to have to stick it out.
It's become a good look, I think. What do you reckon, guys?
No, mate, I like it. Listen, you wear it well.
Mrs. Crook doesn't agree, I've got to tell you.
Nah, I don't know, mate. I think it makes. I think it's an improvement. Crookie, look, loads to go at with you. Let's talk about Man City. Keen to sign Pedro Neto from Chelsea.
Yeah, I think this is dependent on what happens with Savinho. We know there's a lot of interest in him from your beloved Tottenham. There has been for a couple of transfer windows now. He wasn't in the squad for the Community Shield at the weekend. City told us that was because he's got a minor illness. I think it's pretty clear his future is away now from Manchester City. And if he goes, there would be cash there to bring in a new wide player. 100 million euros, apparently, is what Chelsea are demanding for Pedro Neto, which seems a sizable fee, but he's a player, obviously, that Enzo Maresca knows well. He had a good first half of last season when Maresca was there. His form sort of tailed off after the manager left. So I can see this one makes a lot of sense. And obviously, it's not just Pedro Neto that Maresca would like to go back for. Enzo Fernandez remains a Chelsea target. I think if this deal is to happen, maybe they're going to have to pay over the £120 million asking price that expired on Friday. But certainly Fernandez to City is by no means dead.
Yeah, Pedro Neto's also linked with going out to Saudi.
Yeah, Al Hilal showing an interest. They've got a few wingers on their list of targets, but I think his preference would be to stay in England, and I can see why he would want to go and play for Maresca again. They need a bit of help, don't they, Manchester City? I know it's only the Community Shield. You can't read too much into it, but they were miles away from Arsenal at Cardiff yesterday.
They were indeed. Jose Mourinho on Real Madrid. Look like they may be interested in signing Zubimendi from Arsenal.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Speaking to a lot of Arsenal fans, obviously we had that Miles Lewis-Skelly story a week or so ago that he was being touted around the likes of Manchester United and Chelsea. A few of my Arsenal supporting friends were saying, well, if we're going to sell anybody in midfield, let's sell Zubimendi and keep Lewis-Skelly because he's an academy product. He can play in midfield. He can play at left back as well. They need to sell somebody. You look at the absentees from the squad yesterday. No Gabriel Martinelli, no Jesus. Marley Salmon is a young player, but he was mentioned to me by Mikel Arteta afterwards as someone they want to get into the squad. So they're in this very luxurious position, Arsenal, where they've got at least two players for every position, but they've almost got too many players. So I wouldn't completely rule out Zubimendi for Real Madrid.
Okay, what about Liam Delap? Maybe he's not going to feature as much this season. Is he on his way out?
I think it's pretty clear that both him and Nicholas Jackson are available for transfer. I'm told Chelsea want at least 40 million for Liam Delap, which maybe seems a bit expensive for someone who scored one goal in 28 Premier League games last season. I know he was offered to Fulham, but they obviously decided to go down the Spanish route instead. David Moyes is a long-time admirer. Newcastle under Eddie Howe are interested. So I think he's going to have his suitors, Liam Delap. But as long as Chelsea keep demanding such a high fee, I think this one will probably drag on until the final days, maybe even the final day of the transfer window. But he needs to go out and play, doesn't he?
Yeah, possibly alone. Who knows? And Nicholas Jackson, you mentioned there. To be honest with you, I've seen most of Chelsea's games. He's done all right in pre-season, actually. Jackson, I'm slightly surprised at this. Where might he be headed?
Well, Aston Villa, again, a long-term admirers. Unai Emery worked with him in Spain. But I think if they were to sign him, they'd want to do it for maybe a much lesser fee than Chelsea are asking for. Again, I think Chelsea would ideally like to cash in. Obviously, he was on loan at Bayern Munich last season. There was a sizable option that I don't think was ever really realistic. So he's going to get interest from not just the Premier League, from Europe, Turkish clubs as well. I still think it's more likely Nicholas Jackson goes than he stays because obviously you've got João Pedro, who's going to be the main man up front. He's my outside shout, actually, for the Premier League Golden Boot. I think he's going to have a really good season, João Pedro. Danny Welbeck is in there as well. So where do Jackson and Delap really fit into that team?
Okay, what about Rodri? He's set to undergo his Barcelona medical Tuesday. It's a done deal. Everyone happy?
I think so. 65 million the fee for a player in the last year of his contract. And you've got to say, up until the World Cup, it did look like maybe his best days were behind him. He'd had a couple of injury-ravaged years, but he really stepped up in America and obviously helped Spain win that World Cup. He won the Player of the Tournament award. So Manchester City fans, I think, will be sad to see him go, but it's decent money. They're going to sell Tajani Reinders as well. That's going to free up the cash to bring in Bouhaddi from Lille, a much younger player, teenage Moroccan, who himself had a good World Cup, and maybe Fernandez as well. And for Rodri, having just won that World Cup with Spain, it's a dream move, isn't it? Barcelona, 4-year contract.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a really interesting title race, I think, in Spain, because Real Madrid have backed Jose Mourinho. Barcelona have spent plenty of cash as well. So intrigued to see how that works out.
Absolutely. Anything else that we've missed, Crookie?
Well, we need to keep an eye, I think, on Manchester United. There's still a couple of players short for me. I think they certainly need a left back. I think the Lewis Hall deal is looking difficult to do. Maybe fresh legs in midfield. The one I'm surprised about is Adam Wharton, because we've seen a lot of midfielders change hands for big money this summer. Obviously kicked off with Elliot Anderson. Sandro Tonali went to Tottenham for 100 million. Bruno Guimaraes has been sold as well. Nobody really seems to be coming to the party when it comes to Adam Wharton. I think Palace will be pleasantly surprised if that stays the case until September the 1st.
Look, before we let you go, FIFA, they've sacked Chief Operating Officer Kevin Lamore after he criticised Infantino's plan to sell part of the World Cup. It's a bit of a mess again from FIFA.
Yeah, well, this is interesting because obviously he was one who spoke out against Infantino, not the only one of that FIFA sort of executive board, but the fact that they've got rid of him now suggests that Infantino is going to dig his heels in. He's not going to fall on his sword. Obviously, there are upcoming elections, but not for quite some time. So I think anybody who thought Infantino would go quietly, this just proves he wouldn't. I think he still feels he's got significant support from various confederations around the world, and I think he's going to try and hang on for grim life as long as possible. But you're right, it's not been a great look for FIFA, has it, since the World Cup ended? I mean, Infantino didn't cover himself in glory during that tournament. The Flo Balogun situation when the US president got involved and overturned his suspension, I thought was shameful. And that in itself should have been enough for Infantino to leave his position. Then he, as you say, tried to sell off stakes in the World Cup and other competitions. But he's a survivor. He's Teflon, isn't he, Infantino?
Oh, yeah. Just quickly, Crookie, I haven't asked you about Tottenham. Cody Gakpo, how close is that deal to happening? Do we know?
Don't think it'll happen.
Really?
Speaking of sources at Liverpool, they think he's had a good pre-season under Andoni Iraola. They think he's a player that Iraola can get the best out of. They're looking to bring in wide players, not lose them, because the squad still looks a little bit short. I think he'd probably be open to the move, but at the moment, that's not one that I expect to happen between now and deadline day.
Okay. All right, Crookie. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, Crookie.
Cheers, boys.